You're welcome along. This is Wednesday Night Rugby, which also doubles up as Rugby with Brian O'Driscoll. So the full conversation, which is basically a review of 2022, is waiting for you on podcast. Just search Rugby Off the Ball. You'll find it on podcast, and you can enjoy that right across the Christmas at your leisure. Just to give you a taster, we did talk to Brian about the weekend's action in the Heineken Champions Cup. As you'll hear, did not love the Gloucester efforts and what it says about or what they say about the competition in 2022. So here's a bit of Brian O'Driscoll, full conversation on podcast. Leinster against Gloucester, much talked about. I mean, not to hark back to the Corinthian spirit, but if you think about the point of sport, which is your best against our best and let's see who wins, then the Gloucester approach to the game on Friday is professional sport, probably at its most dysfunctional, really. Gordon Darcy was writing about it in the Irish Times today. So he says, Champions Cup is in danger of becoming a sideshow, is the headline. He talked about how it's fast losing its lustre, it's frayed around the edges, various accommodations made to English and French interests. And what he said of the Gloucester situation, he said, we've entered an unhealthy arrangement where clubs are happy to accept the financial benefit of being involved in Europe, yet unwilling to uphold their part of the bargain, which is to be competitive. So your thoughts on this? Because Gloucester, I mean, will still have every chance of making it out of the group the way it's all. It almost incentivised it to an extent. We all understand the logic, but as somebody, you know, whose career, a big part of it is this tournament, and the pool stages were such a part of the tournament, it's very grim, isn't it, when you stop and think about it, that we're here?
I do. I'm at the risk of bagging a competition that's broadcast by an employer. I still have to be honest and not disingenuous to my role here. I think, you know, it is at risk of losing its impact as the competition in European club rugby. It does feel as though the new setup of it has changed the psychology of teams, where, you know, last year I think 7 points got in, which is, you know, bonus point victory and a couple of losing bonus points. 1 victory in 4 games still gets you qualified for the round 16. And it, you know, we talked previously, does that suit? It suits lots of teams because you know, you don't have to go in for everything. You can pick and choose your moments. You know, Gloucester obviously saw the writing on the wall, particularly the fact that they have Leicester in the Premiership next week, who are 1 place below them in Welford Road. So they thought, you know, are we going to go and get anything against this Leinster team in the RDS? Look at the last 7-8 years. History would lead you to believe it's unlikely, and trying to fight on multiple fronts. So why not send a second string, prepare for Leicester, and for the return fixture in Kingsholm in January, we'll put our full strength team out there. You know, a second victory will have us qualify for a round of 16. So put all your eggs into that basket. Alternatively, they could still go down to Bordeaux with a strong team and pick up points there. And so it's very frustrating when you look at that Gloucester team. When it came out, I was annoyed initially, but it's not. I don't think it's the fault of the teams. I think it's the fault of the structure of how the makeup of the competition at the moment, where we're trying to get into knockout competition quickly. But is it right that teams that have won 1 game, you know, should qualify for Europe, for knockout Europe? That doesn't seem in line with the history of the competition, where in groups of 6, you know, you had to win 4 games. I think once a team won 3 games and managed to qualify in the 25-year history of that format. So you had to win 4, and more often than not, 4 didn't get you a home quarter final. So you needed 5. And so I think, you know, the issue lies with the format, and it's losing an element of credibility. It's losing a bit of its the excitement around it, and because you're having games like the Gloucester game that was a foregone conclusion before any ball was kicked. That's not the best of European rugby.
No,
it's not the best pitting themselves against the best. It's nonsense. So I'm very frustrated by it. But yet, I'm not going to go and point fingers at George Skivington because he decided to make a decision, and he probably made the right call. If you look at his team, where are they going to get? Looking at what Leinster did against Racing the previous week, were his best Gloucester team going to come to the RDS and get something out of the game? I would say no. And so he realised that, and bigger fish to fry at different times. So he sent a second string team accordingly to go and get a bit of experience, try and build a bit of pride, get some air miles, literally on their legs rather than in the plane, and so they had nothing to lose in the game and came away, albeit they got thrashed. They put up the best display that I suppose they possibly could have with the team that was selected.
To segue into review of the year territory on Leinster, seeing as we've jumped off on that game from Friday night, I was listening to your commentary on BT. It must have been in round one, perhaps. It was against Racing, and you were just making the point mid-play that maybe the last 12 months are close to the best, or very close to the best iteration of Leinster that there has ever been. But because of that loss to La Rochelle, this group won't be remembered in anything close to the light they perhaps should be.
No, I agree. I would say I would reinforce all of that. That's exactly my sentiment. That's exactly my feeling. I can't remember as many commanding victories and near complete performances throughout the course of the year and even in advance of coming into 2022. But then the games against a very, very weak Montpellier, away to Bath, very, very comprehensive. Again, Bath, not a good team last year, but I think they put 50 odd points on them. Leicester, in Welford Road, Connacht, in home and away. Like, there was so much good stuff there. There were so many really high quality performances up, and including Toulouse in the semi-final and up until the final. I would say the best rugby that I have seen from a Leinster team, and yet no trophy at the end of it, no trophy in the URC, and it'll just be a what might have been year. And it's such a shame when you think about the quality that we saw over the course of the year. But it just shows everything is dependent on what you do at the end of the season. Whether you lift that trophy or whether you don't is whether the memories of your performances are captured or whether they're filed away into also ran. So it is a great pity for that team's perspective that they weren't able to raise their game on the biggest stage in the European final, and they came up against a very well coached La Rochelle team, defensively sound. But they must look back on that one. Besides the fact that the manner in which they lost the game in the last 90 seconds, take that aside. They just didn't play particularly well. They weren't allowed play in that final, and that's what the residual memories are from it, is just falling at the final hurdle rather than all those amazing games over the course of the year. And there were some kind of questionable, teams that were put in, the Montpellier team, the Bath team, Leicester, a good side, Connacht home and away, you'd expect to beat them. So Toulouse at home, so maybe you could look back and go, well, were they weren't, you weren't going into the depths of France to take on the best of French opposition on their turf. No. But just the consistency of performance, attack and defence, I just thought was so good and great to watch. As a neutral, you must have thought, wow. I even heard Alan Quinlan say that his brother goes, wow, Leinster are good to watch, aren't they? But we got a bit of that this season, already with Racing, but we got so much of that last year. So it seems a real pity in those players' careers that they weren't able to kind of earmark an exceptional year of rugby with a trophy at the end of it, the biggest trophy.
There you are. That was Brian O'Driscoll, just a taster of it. The full conversation, which is a review of 2022, is waiting for you on podcast. Just search Rugby Off the Ball and you'll find it in your podcast feed.